Hi. Hello.
All right. Let's get started. Good evening and welcome everyone to another meeting of the Inkster City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's all rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Wimberly.
Here.
Where?
Councilwoman Wiley. Councilman Washington.
Here.
Councilman Shaw. Councilwoman Howard.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
And Councilman Chisholm.
Here.
We have 5 present and 2 absent as of now.
Well, Mr. Shaw is on, Councilman Shaw is on, and Councilwoman Watley is on. She's just on mute.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
I don't know if she stepped away. Oh, there she is. Can we get her off of mute, please?
Yeah.
Well, we have 7 present, Mayor.
All right, perfect. Closed session, we're gonna have that at the end. Do we have any closed session items? Attorney Jones is here?
He's
Saw him
here.
coming.
Him and Eric are both here, so I believe we do. I'm looking for their names right
Yeah,
here.
so we're definitely gonna have some, so we're gonna push that down to the end of the agenda. Approval of the agenda with the one addition, Mayor Pro Tem?
Stuart Rosenblatt under presentation.
So move, Mr. Chair.
It's been properly moved and supported. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilman
Support.
Might have to say that again.
Right. I couldn't hear it.
Can I get a roll call vote for support?
Yes. Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw.
Yes.
Councilmember Chisholm.
Yes.
Councilmember Watley. Councilmember Watley.
Yes.
Okay. I was just, we're doing the roll call vote for the agenda. And is that a yes for the approval of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. And Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
And Councilmember Washington.
Yes.
We have 6 yeas, Mayor.
Right, we have an agenda. Let's move right along. Presentations, Mr. Rosenblatt, it's on the line for resolution 6422.
He is unmuted. He is unmuted.
Hello?
Hi,
Can
Mr.
you hear
Rosen.
us?
Yes, we can hear you,
Hi.
sir. Hi.
Great. Okay, I know we have 3 minutes. This is a quick thing on support for the resolution which endorses the bill now in front of Congress, H.R. 6422, for a gigantic FDR-style national infrastructure bank. Now, I'm going to let my wife make the presentation, and we'll both take questions.
I just want to tell everybody that this bill was introduced by Congressman Danny Davis at the end of March. And it's been absolutely fortuitous that this is coming in the middle of a huge crisis, not just COVID, but everything that we're seeing in the social demonstrations. And I think that that this bill actually addresses everything, whether you're talking about unemployment, the collapsing infrastructure as what we're seeing in Michigan with the water crisis, the dams busting open, bridges falling down, roads, we need affordable housing, everything that people need as part of their everyday life. So we are, and I also would like to tell you that in the text of the bill, the investments into infrastructure go all over the country into rural areas, urban areas, into disadvantaged areas, areas that have been in poverty for over 30 years. It explicitly says that the investments have to be in compliance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So what we're talking about is really a big, bold change in direction that we literally haven't seen since the 1960s. So we really urge you to support this resolution. This is to get co-sponsors to the Davis-Moulton bill, H.R. 6422. And just so that you know, this has been done 4 times in U.S. history that we had a national infrastructure bank. It was last done by Franklin Roosevelt during the Great Depression, prior to that by Abraham Lincoln, and it goes all the way back to George Washington. So this is how we built the country. And I urge you to support the resolution. I want to thank you for inviting us to speak. And anybody that has any questions, just let us know.
Well, thank you so much. Is there any questions from the body? All right, hearing none, we'll close the public, the presentation portion.
Can I take 10 seconds just on endorsements? Just so you know, this has been endorsed by the National Association of Minority Contractors, National Congress of Black Women, National Association of Counties, National Latino Farmers and Ranchers, many labor unions, and others. The bill mandates the creation of 25 million new jobs at union wages, specifically to build urban and rural cities, schools, hospitals, the works. Okay, that probably is 3 minutes.
Outstanding. Any questions from the body? All right, hearing none, let's move right along. Thank you so very much, Mr. Rosenbaum.
Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, moving right along. Felicia, as it relates to public hearing, do we open up public hearing?
Yes, we're having a public hearing on the FY 2021 City of Inkster budget and proposed water and sewage rates.
Is there support to open up public hearing?
So move, Mr.
Support.
Chair.
And who moved?
Councilman Shaw, I think.
Councilman Shaw moved.
Yes.
Howard support.
Yes.
Do we need a roll call for this, or we just open?
You don't, you can just open the public hearing.
Okay. All right, good then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing open. Darren, all yours, my friend. And
Well, no, I think at this point, it's just if anyone from the public wants to speak in connection with the budget.
all right, and Councilman Chisholm, are you going to?
Yep, anybody from the general public, if you were calling in by telephone and you have questions or comments, you press *9. Of course, anybody who is connected with the Zoom application or through the Zoom website, you should have the option to raise your hand. For callers, *9 is what will raise your hand so that we can unmute you. And we have one hand raised. I'm unmuting them right now. And caller, you are unmuted.
I have a question. I wasn't at the final budget meeting, but are we still incorporating?
Please.
Caller, and I apologize just for the sake of the meeting, if you could say your name.
This is Yvette Brock.
Yvette Brock. All right.
Yes.
Go ahead. What's your question?
I have a question. I wasn't at the final budget meeting, but have we incorporated the money that was coming via basically a gift from some proprietors in the city into the budget? And if so, how are we guaranteeing that money's going to come in? Why are we budgeting that?
And Mr. Carrington, do you understand what she's speaking to? Unmute Mr. Carrington, please.
Thanks, Steve. I muted myself, forgot I couldn't unmute. So I do understand Ms. Brock's question. She's referring to the projection that's been included in the mayor's recommended budget, and as we start drafting the approved budget, there's a projection in there specifically in the revenue section of the general fund budget for contributions / donations from cannabis companies, an expectation of kind of an agreement being finalized and put into place The initial recommended budget had that projection at $500,000. The current draft for the approved budget, after discussion with council and within the administration, that projection has been reduced down to a total of $150,000. So that's the current amount that's in the budget drafts. That we expect to move forward with, if that answers Ms. Brock's question.
If I may, Darren, what reassurance do we have that they're going to pay that? Because this is nothing more than a gift. It's not even reinforceable in court, right?
There has been some discussions with the city and within the administration and the city, looking to put in place some things in regards to the ordinance and having some type of community-based benefits agreement. Those are some of the things that are currently on the table that we expect to have in place during the upcoming fiscal year. No contracts or nothing. No legally binding agreements have been hammered out at this point in time. But Ms. Brock, as you know, with a budget, we try and include all projections and assumptions that we think make sense. And not only the fact that we included this category, but the amount, and that's the primary reason why we reduced it to 150,000 was that we wanted to have an amount that we felt highly confident about in terms of where we are, the discussions that have been had. The administration has had a number of discussions with these companies and looking at some of the neighboring communities in terms of the pattern of the agreements that have been able to get successfully negotiated. We feel that $150,000 amount is an amount that we can reliably include in the budget.
Thank you.
Hey,
You're welcome.
I did see that, I think she attempted to raise her hand, Shirley Hankerson, because it's saying she's waving, but I believe that's the same thing. Is unmuting her. And Shirley, gonna need you to click unmute or click accept to unmute when I unmute you, if you were trying to, there you go.
Good evening, all.
evening.
My question is, and how would that 150,000 be used? I know in the past, when we had different companies, especially cannabis companies that are here in the city, what they would do, they would sponsor a police officer or a firefighter. So how are we going to use that money?
It's going to go into general fund. I mean, there hasn't been, any specific discussion. Right now, the expectation is that it would be given in a contribution / donation to the city, and basically in an unrestricted manner so that it can be utilized for however the city deems best within the general fund. I think more specifically to your point about public safety, certainly we have more than enough costs within public safety in both the fire department and police department so that if there's a specific tie to that donation, if somebody wants to make a donation specifically within general fund to the public safety departments, we would be able to facilitate that and to accept that contribution consistent with their wishes.
Okay. I have one more question. As long as it's not going to be used for an extra person in the administrative, I'm fine with that because it needs to go to something that's really needed in the city, and I don't think it should be used for an extra administrator for the mayor's office. Okay.
Sure, and on that point, any appropriation or expense, regardless of the department, has to be done consistent with the city's charter, with the state budget act. And so those require council approval. And so if anything like that were to occur, it would be handled like any other appropriation that would need to go before council and get the necessary required approval.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Chisholm, any others?
I don't see any at this time, and anybody who might not have heard, in order to raise your hand to speak at this particular time, star 9 from your cell phone, or if you have the wave option on your device, that's feasible as well. But I don't see any more. Let me just scroll down to make sure, because they normally fly up to the top. Don't see anyone. Oh, wait, we just got, hold on. There we go.
Mayor and Council, this is Yvette Brock again. I just got one other question. I noticed under most categories, they have something under here like professional services under almost every major category. What is that?
So it just depends on, Ms. Brock, what department you're referring to. Generally, when we have any type of consultant, advisor, anyone that's providing professional services, we would generally put them into that category. And that's really just done from an accounting standpoint. So if there's a specific department, I can provide you more details, in terms of what specific vendor or what specific services is captured within that department, within that category in a given department.
Okay, I was just asking because it seems to be under most headings. It's under fire, it's under police, under administration, it's under every heading.
Yes, yeah. So it's really again, it's a category that by and large we use for consultants and anyone that's providing professional services, and so we place them in that category and try and match it to the appropriate department. And again, it's really, the wording of that is the title of that particular category is really just designed for budget and accounting purposes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilman Chisholm, you see anyone else?
I don't see any other hands raised. Final call for speaking to the during the public hearing for the budget. If you have just called in, star 9 is how you raise your hand. Or if you are on video, you should have the wave hand or raise hand option. And I don't see anything further.
All right, motion to close public hearing.
So move, Mr. Chair. So move, Mr. Chair.
And move with support.
Support.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Close public hearing. Consent agenda.
So move.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carries. Boards and commissions. Councilman Williams?
None.
Councilwoman Watley?
No.
Councilman Chisholm?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Howard?
I have none.
And Councilwoman Washington?
Aye.
All right, moving right along. Previous business, ordinance first reading, second reading, new business.
Item A under new business is consideration and approval of HR 6422 resolution in support of the need to build infrastructure, support creating great paying jobs, and support actions.
So move.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm moving too fast. Any discussion on the matter? All right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any nays? Ayes have it, motion carry.
Item B is adoption of the FY 2021 General and Special Appropriations Act Resolution and Budgets.
What's your pleasure?
So I just wanted to kind of update everyone here. I know on Saturday I sent around the draft of the approved budget and wanted to cover that. There were a few questions that I did address and some conversations with individual council members, but wanted to go over any questions that were provided. There were two items that I did want to cover in detail before we got started, if that's in order. One is for
Yes.
the water rates, and then secondly would be, as everyone knows, on the draft approved budget, there was a proposed public lighting special assessment. So I wanted just to take a few moments and cover those two items. And I don't know if it's Troy or Phineas. I've got a couple of documents that I wanted to share. So if I could get those pulled up, or the ability to pull those up. Doggone it. You know what? I'm looking at my computer. I'm on my iPad here.
Can you call in from your computer real quick? Or
Yeah. Let me. Can you text me the meeting ID or do?
Yeah, I can text it to you. You want to text or email?
Either one doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just realized I was on two different devices here.
So ID is 831.
Okay, I just finished. Just sent me a.
Oh, you just sent it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Cody. Okay, I'm gonna try because I'm having a little delay in getting that finished. I'm gonna just email you the documents if you just if you can pull those up for me.
Yeah, not a problem.
And let's so finish. Those are being sent now. Let's start with the water document. Okay, thank Thanks, Finis. We can, so this is just to give a quick overview of the proposed water rates. Finis, we can go to the next slide. And this is where we have, we list the water rates from the last several years, along with the water rate that's being proposed for this current fiscal year. The proposed water rate is on the far right in the next to last column under proposed FY 2021. At the bottom, you see a total of $16.75. That would be the total cost of the water rate on a per unit basis. Moving one column to the left, you see the actual for FY 2020, which reflects the current water rate on a per unit basis of $15.45. So if you look at the final column there, you can see that the proposed increase is a total increase of $1.30 and a percentage increase of about 8.4%, 8.41%. And so you can kind of see, and looking at the totals there, going back, you can see the different water rates that the city has had in the last several fiscal years. So that's the number there. Finis, if we can go down to the next slide. And this just shows on an annual basis what the increase has been. This doesn't show the total, it's just each year what the increase has been. So you can see, you know, in some years we've had the rates go down, and in you know, most years the rates have been increased. So again, the current proposed rate is at an increase over the current rate, which is $15.45, increasing it by 8.41% to a total of 16.75, which is, again, the per unit basis. When we get into the reason for that, and Finis, if we can go back to the prior slide, we generate these rates based on a rate, what we call a rate model, where we take several inputs, components of the overall cost, revenues and expenses. And if you recall, we've had several studies that have been done and several recent, essentially, mandates that have been placed before the city's water department, where we're having to do a much larger amount of capital investment. The city's having to undergo a pretty sizable repair and replacement program. So that's largely driving up the rate for this fiscal year, particularly when we look at the sewer side. There are a few main things that are going on. One is what's happening with the lead service replacement. We're having to do $6 to $7 million of replacing lead service lines across the city at an approximate cost of between $6 and $7 million, spread out over about 13 years. But we're having to start that in fiscal year 21, beginning in July 1st. Recently, the city completed this storm, the SAW grant, where the city did an in-depth study of the sewer line conditions across the city, and the total bill on that has come in at approximately $60 million. So we're having to do a number of repairs related to that. We're projecting that out over a 20-year timeline. So there's $3 million of repairs that we're projecting for the coming fiscal year. Additionally, we have the repair and replacement program for under the drinking water and clean water, which is our water mains and our sewer lines. And there's several million dollars of construction and repair and replacement that need to go on under for our water main and our sewer line. So as had been discussed prior, in prior meetings, we've got a large amount of capital repairs, replacements that we have to take on really, immediately in the next fiscal year. And based on that, we're at a point where the rate model and the amount of spending that is being required, much more than in prior years, leads us to having to end up with this increase of about 8.4% in a per unit cost of $16.75 to the customers. So just wanted to open up if there's any questions on that.
Yes, Mr. Chair. That's very, very expensive. I apologize for not being able to get back with you, Mr. Carrington. I tried to call you, but I was getting some interruptions on your phone there. That's very expensive. It's very expensive of $16.75 to the taxpayers here. I noticed that in the FY16 and FY17, there was no consistency to the rates of the past 2014-15. I remember those rates very well because we had a whole bunch of folks in City Hall that was really unpleased about some of those rates that were going up. And I understand that at the time we were going through the meter change, and some of those water bills wasn't being collected, and I understood that. But we didn't have any consistency of foreseeing these even capital projects, because there's always some capital projects in water and sewage. So my question would be, why was there no consistency, and why was those rates dropped down and not continuous a flow like we had projected many years ago?
And I assume you're referring to the decrease in FY16 and FY17.
Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah.
And then also, but I know I don't want to steal your thought on that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm listening. I'm fine.
And I would like to understand the presentations that was given to the council body at that time in 2016 and 17 to come up with a decrease in the water, because there's always some capital improvements that needs to be done.
Yeah, and both FY16 and FY17 predates my tenure. I wasn't involved in that process during those budget years. But I can say, I think in compared to say 4 or 5 years ago, where we are now is a much different environment. We're post the city of Flint. I think that was a very eventful situation in terms of how the state and other agencies handle the infrastructure improvements. And before, these items may have been known to some extent or the other, but we certainly didn't have two things. One, we didn't have cost certainty like we do now. And secondly, we didn't have the mandates in the way that we do now. And so, again, I can't necessarily speak to that. I know there was some people on council and others who may have been involved, or citizens who may have been involved then, but just, I think there's those two things. Like I say, post Flint, there's a much greater sense of urgency in terms of identifying what needs to be repaired. That was one of the big reasons for the SAW grant. I was talking with one of the council members earlier today, and just, reminding everyone about how we got the SAW grant, but the purpose of the SAW grant was to try and identify and put a price tag on what repairs needed to happen. We haven't gotten a grant on making those repairs. So there's a like I say, a much greater and certainty of what the costs are. And there's much greater sense of urgency in getting those repairs. We're being forced to commit to making those repairs in a way that we had not had to do previously. So, in that environment, speaking of FY16 and FY17, you didn't necessarily have those factors at play, keeping in mind that, FY17 would have been kind of spring of 2016. And again, I think those factors, were not in play. And I think those are some of the more important factors in terms of why we're having to firmly commit to making these repairs on a very specific timeline.
Yeah, and I understand that. I was always, taught that, we always kind of prepare, for the worst of the storms that we have went through. So we never look to, always go backwards or decrease, but always to try to keep a consistency in the rates. Because as you look at the population here, is getting very expensive to live here. And, we don't want to, from my standpoint, to just expense everybody out with these water rates. And I just want you to understand a little bit of how I'm concerned about it, because I have saw it happen before. When we first introduced, the $13 and then with the $14, then it was the $15. And it was a real sticking point in those previous years. And there was a real big concern by the citizens concerning these water rates. Now, the point I want to get to is, in the unrestricted fund, is there still 6.6 million in the unrestricted?
There's a little less than that. We're probably between 5.5 and 5.8 million currently. I think we'll probably be somewhere between 5.5 and 6 million, just depending upon where we are in terms of paying on some projects and processing some payments and the like. But there's still a fair amount of cash that is available, and that certainly was taken into consideration when we developed these rates, Councilman Shaw.
And these projects are going to consist of 15 to 20 years. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. The SAW grant, I think, is 20 years, and I know Mr. Bivens is online. He can correct me if I say anything that's incorrect. Right now, that's probably the longest timeline that we have. I know there are a number of requirements that we have to do for EGLE, I believe under the Drinking Water and Clean Water, but I know the SAW grant is based on a 20-year timeline, and the current working estimate we have is $60 million total for that.
Now, in the net surplus, is it still 900,000 or? In the net surplus?
That's more of an end of the year projection. I don't have outside of what we currently have in the amended budget, I don't have any different information. But again, we do take all that into consideration. What the current financial standing is, what the amended budget calls for, what other sources of funding we may have. We have a $500,000 grant that we are able to help defray the cost. So we try and factor all those things in, because we all, I know I can say, we share your concern in terms of where the water rates are. The main thing, again, the main thing driving this is that we have to, for the fiscal integrity of the water system, we have to make sure that we're at a rate that's going to generate revenues that's necessary to cover the cost of the system. And I think, again, the biggest thing that's different is that we now got some pretty sizable mandates that the city's facing. And we're like a lot of communities in Southeastern Michigan and across the state. We didn't have a $60 million price tag in prior years that we were having to confront. We do now. And that's really just the reality of the situation.
And yeah, I understand. And, but the revenues have been going up in an upward swing from 16, 17, 18, 19 too, as well, in the water and sewage. So, I'm just, concerned, that, that's a hefty price tag as well of $1.30. I'm definitely looking at something in the middle of that, and not just a great big hit with that. And that's all I have. That's all I have. That's all.
I understand. Okay.
Mr. Carrington, it also should be stated that this is not going to be the final rate change that we're looking at. So if you can speak to that as well.
And are you're referencing the Rouge Valley, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah. So as the mayor alluded to, there's several big ticket items that we have on the horizon, and these were presented in prior meetings to council and to the residents. As I mentioned, we've got the lead service replacement. We have the SAW grant. And then what the mayor alluded to was the Rouge Valley. Right now, we don't have we have no estimate on that. I think as of last week, Mr. Bivens had some communication with the folks that oversee that program. So we don't have any kind of cost estimate, nor do we have any particular idea of how that cost is going to be shared, covered, handled. So that's something else that, has been on the horizon, and we want to be transparent and reminding everyone that that's still a component of the water system that will need to be addressed. When that will happen, I think, and Jerome, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were told it'll be late this year, sometime in the fall, when we're able to get more information on what that's going to look like. But this is just based on the information that we have, the cost that we know of, and what ability we have to fund those costs, particularly within the next fiscal year, making sure that we address those things that we're required to address in fiscal year 2021.
And just to be clear, these are mandates from the state. So if we don't do this, then what's the alternative, or what's the consequences?
Mr.
Well,
Mayor.
I mean, I know the answer to that. I just think I wanted Mr. Carrington to be clear with that.
Yeah, I think
Mr.
Bivens can probably speak to that a little better than I can.
Go ahead, Mr. Bivens.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and the public. To the mayor's point, all these projects have come about from us accepting grants from the state and getting awarded. So each time we get awarded X amount of dollars, at the end of that, I have to do what they call an asset management plan. And when I submit that plan, it's on behalf of the city and the residents. This is what we're planning and steps on doing improvements. And so now those improvements have to come into place, and that's why the budget looks like that. So to the mayor's point, you start getting into violations and you start getting into oversight from the state, because they take their water very serious, as Mr. Karen has stated to you guys. And we don't want to go down that road. I think I have a good working relationship right now with Eagle, all the way up to Lansing. I've met with the people. I've expressed our financial burdens, and they understand that. But at the same time, too, we have to do something. And what we're presenting to you tonight is just a fragment of what we have to do. Like Mr. Carrington said, the sewer's over 20 years. So that's 60 million. That's not including the water. We still got to address our water infrastructure. We're doing that, and we still got to deal with the lead and copper. So, I mean, I understand. I agree with Councilman Shaw, that number is high, but a lot of times, in the 24 years I've been here, when the water rates have come before mayor and council, they've always backed down off of certain increases and sometimes decreased it. But now we can't do that because now I'm mandated to do certain things and I have to be in compliance. And I plan to do that for the city of Inkster because we don't want to get into violations. We don't want to get into state oversight. Then we'll really be in trouble.
Hey, nobody.
In order, did we have a question?
I didn't know if Councilman Shaw was still talking. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Councilman Shaw, you yield the floor.
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chair. What projects will be done first? Would it be the water and lead?
So we have a few specific projects identified for fiscal year 2021. So on the lead service line, that project will be done every year. So and Jerome can, if more detail, but basically we've got a set number of years to repair and replace all of the lead service lines, and we're going to be doing that pretty much evenly throughout the next 13 years. So that's going to get started in next fiscal year. We also have some of the work under the SAW grant, and then what's that, Jerome? Storm access. What is?
That's the sanitary and sewers combined. So we have that work will begin in FY21 in July 2. We will put a bid package together and go out for bid, bring it back before mayor and council to get a contractor under, because we have some sinkholes here that are category 5. And a lot of council members are new, but when we did our PASER study, some of our roads came in category 5. Those are the worst conditions. So we will be addressing those right away in FY21 and moving forward. And as Mr. Carrington stated, the lead and copper is for 13 years. We have 13 years to replace 67 services each year under the state guideline. So I hope I answered your question, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I have another one. Under the Rouge, when you mentioned the Rouge, is that the Rouge River that the state, what was that, the county wanted us to pitch in to help clean up? Is that what you was referring to, or Mr. Carrington was referring to?
Yeah, there's two things going on with the Rouge Valley. One, we belong to the Rouge Valley because our sewer travels down the Rouge River into a 60-inch sewer, and then it goes to Gleaver for cleaning. The second part of that is Mayor Pro Tem Howard, you were on, I think Councilwoman Wiley and Chisholm were on when the Gleaver sent their representative Vito to speak to you about Wayne County borrowing $55 million from the state to clean up the Rouge River, and all 17 communities had to pitch in. We had to pass a resolution. That's part 2 of the Rouge, which we were required twice a year to make a payment. That's separate from the Rouge Valley. And like Mr. Carrington spoke, I have reached out to them, and because of the pandemic, the budget is not out yet. They said it should be out by October. So I asked them as of last week if they could give me a preliminary or some kind of number that we can stick it to the budget. I told them about this meeting tonight, and they said no, they couldn't do that. So that's another number we're not certain of right now, but we will know in October. So, we'll probably have to do a budget amendment in October to include those numbers.
Okay. So what about the Greenway project? Is that included in this budget?
That's out of road fund. That's a separate project.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
I got a question.
Councilman Williams?
Okay, we're talking about the increase on the rates for the people in the community. Okay, I'm kind of confused. what is all that going to cover? Because I remember one while we was talking about the money that we have to pay the county, okay, and I didn't hear that in this increase. So what I'm trying to figure out now is exactly how much increase that we're going to have to pay, more than this $1.35 that we're talking about increasing.
I'm sorry. Repeat your question for me.
My question is this: you're asking for a $1.30 increase in the water rates, okay? Mm-hmm. And you didn't indicate whether or not that's going to cover the Rouge and the Wayne County or whatever. I'm kind of confused with that, because if in fact that the increased rates that you have that's not going to cover that, then that means that somehow we're going to have to increase more than what we're talking.
Sure. Okay. I think I got it. So yeah. So what I spoke to earlier was that we tried to capture everything that we have some projection on. The one thing that we know is on our radar, that has been on our radar for some time. We've discussed it, and with this council, it was brought before prior council. Is the Rouge Valley? That's what I was speaking to, and what Director Bivens was speaking to. We haven't gotten any kind of estimates from them, so we don't know what that number is going to look like. We don't know how they're going to structure that. We don't know if we got to start paying it right away, if there's going to be some kind of offset, or if there can be some other kind of funding provided. We know it's coming. We just don't know what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost. But everything else that we had talked about prior, the lead service lines, the SAW grant, the clean water, drinking water, all those things are included in this proposed increase.
Well, we're talking about increasing the water rates. In my district, as you know, and I'm glad Mr. Bivens is on the line, we have a serious problem with the water pumps not holding over in that area. Okay, many people, basements are getting flooded, and then now you're telling the representative to go back and tell them that we're going to increase the water rates, but yet and still we got so many people over there, the basements are flooding, the pumps are not constantly taking on the water there. So my question is, if these rates increase, what is going to happen there? Now I know Mr. Bivens did tell me that he had some engineer looking into the matter. Well, now that he's on the line, maybe you can tell me, if we talk about increasing the water rates, is this going to be taken care of? Because people have been crying. I mean, they've been angry. Let me put it like that. Okay, sure. That they constantly got to see their basements flooded over and over and over again, and then we're not answering the solution. We haven't come up with a solution yet.
No, I understand your point, Councilman. I mean, and Mr. Bivens can chime in. I think this is one of the reasons why, and I don't know the exact situation. I know you had some conversations with Director Bivens, but one of the reasons why we are experiencing issues with our infrastructure is because, like a number of communities, particularly in our area, we have an aged system. And unfortunately, we have not, again, like most communities, if not all communities, we have not kept up with the maintenance and repair of our infrastructure. This program that we're currently having to do is specifically to address that, is to begin repairing and replacing so that we can avoid those types of issues. Now, how soon we will do that, again, like with the SAW grant, this is a 20-year program. Very, very little of this is going to be done overnight. We have some specific programs. I think, Jerome, we talked about doing Avondale, I believe, is one of the programs that we've talked about. There's some repairs to Andover. But, the purpose of this is to now start doing the repairs that we have kind of fallen behind, not in the past few years, but in the past few decades. And this is just, a situation where we're having to make up for work that probably should have been done 10, 20, even 30 years ago in some regards.
And to your question, Councilman Williams, and to the body and to the mayor, Andover is one of the projects that Mr. Carrington just spoke of. It's in the FY20 budget. We're doing it now. It's a carry over to FY20 hopefully before the fall hit, I will have some resolution on that. So we have been diligently working on that for a year now. And that's one of my EGLE requirements, as the mayor spoke to. So I am addressing that issue in that area, Councilman Williams.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to hear you say, because I tell you what, it is a serious problem in that area.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know how the kind of pumps y'all put over there. How come we having so much problem with them? And all this supposed to have been able to take care of all of this once we put all them brand new pump systems over there in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, so I don't understand what's going on with that. And I hope that
that's why it's under investigation right now, because I need to understand why. I know we eliminated a pump station over there several years ago on Burton, and literally we eliminated one pump station and we put one. We did an underground connection on Fernham. So I need to understand too myself, and as I have explained to the mayor, and keep him abreast of situations that's going on in that area. That's why we're doing the hydraulic model right now, study to see if that pump station is meeting its capacity. But if not, we will have to increase it, and that's what the state is working with us on right now. So I'm taking all that into consideration, sir.
Okay. One, I want to understand one thing, Mr. Carrington. Okay, because I understand you want this increase, $1.30 per unit. Am I right?
No, I'm going to pause there. I don't want this increase. I'm saying. I'm just presenting, like, based on what we need to do. This is most certainly the recommendation I'm making. Let's be clear on that. But it's not like I'm just waking up in the morning like, oh, I want to hike the rates up $1.30. This is just based on what we can get by with it. What's that?
Are you saying we can get by without increasing the rates? No.
Let's be clear. I'm most certainly 100% recommending we go with the $16.75. That's not what I want. I'm just saying, based on the numbers, that's what we're going to need to do in order to operate the system, make the capital improvements. That's what we need to do. That's most clearly 100% my recommendation, without question. It's not my opinion, and it's not my desire. It's not something, I just don't want this. I'm just saying this is what we, based on where we are today, this is what we need. Most certainly.
Before.
Did we lose Mr. Carrington?
No, Mr. Carrington's here.
Oh, okay.
Looked like he had
I'm here.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Was
I don't know. I don't know if it was Reverend Williams done.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem.
I have Moran's recommendation, because I know they give their recommendation as well, or you guys. I don't know how you work that out. But
yeah, no, they're 100%. They're the ones who run the rate model. We've had some communications. We've had some meetings internally within the administration. 100%. Again, like I said, they're solidly saying that their recommendation is that we need to charge that rate.
Okay.
To your point, Mayor Pro Tem, we looked at like 3 or 4 different alternatives and looked at possibly increasing the rate by half this year, but the money still exists. So we still have to fund it. So we could possibly say, okay, we're going to do half the rate model this year, but then next year it'll be double the amount, because this is over, a 15 or 20 year period, Aaron?
So we kind of use a 5-year projection on our capital investment. Mm-hmm. And to the mayor's point, really and truly, because we know these projects are going to have to happen. So let's take, Eastern Outfall is one project. By delaying it a year, we're really just delaying it's a temporary increase, temporary delay in the increase. The project's not going anywhere. And the sooner we get this stuff repaired, the less likely it is to cause any further problems. You know, in a perfect world, we would just start spending, you know, $60, $70 million out the gate and trying to improve everything, because then we avoid any further cost or breakdowns, but we know we can't do that. And so there's not a lot of value in delaying any increases, particularly when we know we're going to have to pay these things.
Okay. One more last question. I do know a lot of people may not be on this call or may not see this. So is it any way that we can maybe, I know the water bills are, they go out every month, but I'm not sure if we have enough room to actually put the jobs that have to be done, you know, with our rate increase, so everyone can see this is the reason why, because you know our phones are going to be ringing off the hook, but a lot of people don't watch it or not on Zoom. So is there any way possible that we can include that in the water bills and just tell people what the capital improvements that we are doing that's causing the water rates to increase?
Yes, certainly. And I think that's to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, and I think it's an excellent one. You know, one of the things we certainly have, you know, we've discussed within the administration is, you know, taking some additional steps to communicate what's going on, you know, operationally, what the plans are, where we stand. We have some specific requirements on the lead service lines, but I think it certainly would be a value for the customers, residents, to see, in all honesty, for us to you know, put a little more effort behind communicating what's going on, why it's happening, where things stand, and we certainly have discussed that, and we'll be taking those steps.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, moving right along. Now, Darren, what's the action that's needed here? Did you have something else that we needed to?
I just wanted to briefly present the lighting assessment. I think the discussions where we were going to provide council an opportunity to kind of digest the draft of the approved budget that was presented to them on Saturday, and that we would then entertain a special meeting or something in the next week or so, once we've had some additional communication and can come up with an agreed upon approved budget that can be presented and voted upon. And so, as I mentioned, one of the other things that was also included in the current draft of the approved budget, as we discussed earlier, there was a reduction in and I think we discussed this earlier. I've had a number of conversations. I apologize if I'm mixing things up, but I believe we discussed earlier the reduction in the contribution from the cannabis companies.
Yes, you mentioned that.
Okay, so we reduced that by $350,000. As you know, we've already included some pretty significant cost reductions in the current draft of the budget. In order to avoid further reductions, one of the things that we looked at was trying to identify an alternative revenue source. One of the things is, and I wanted to present this to council and to the citizens this evening, is a special, what we call a public lighting special assessment. And Phineas, if we can just roll to the next slide here. So again, this is the public lighting special assessment. What it is, it's a special assessment that's levied against the real property in the city. It's specifically designed to generate revenue to cover the costs for public lighting, to cover the cost for providing and maintaining street lights across the city. That cost currently is incurred in the general fund. For fiscal year 21, we're projecting about $430,000 in expenses for public lighting. The public lighting special assessment is something that is being done in a number of different communities, including Westland, Taylor, and Garden City. And in terms of structuring this special assessment, there's a few methods that, a few different methods that can be used to structure this. So let's turn, Phineas. So wanted to go over the methods. So again, this is a special assessment, a tax assessment that's applied against real property placed onto the tax bills. One approach is to charge a flat fee for every improved parcel in the city. A second method is to charge a fee based on a calculation of the linear footage. Basically, that's the frontage for any given parcel. And then a third approach would be to assess a fee based on a calculation from the square footage or the overall size of each parcel. So the first method is again, we would just take a flat fee based on the total number of improved parcels, thinking that number somewhere around 8,000 or so improved parcels in the city, and we would just level a flat fee for each parcel, improved parcel in the city. The second method is using the amount of linear feet. So we would calculate the total amount of linear footage across the city, and based on the formula, come up with a number to apply for each linear foot, and then set the assessment for each parcel based on that. The last method is again, it's based on square footage. This really where you bring into play how large an overall parcel is. So if you have a residential parcel versus a commercial industrial parcel, this takes into consideration the size of the overall parcel. And so we would set the formula based on the amount of square footage for parcels, and then calculating the formula based and applying the assessment based on how large, how much square footage is on a parcel. Different communities use different methods. Some are using linear footage, some are using the square footage, some are using the improved parcel. But these would just be some of the different options that could be utilized with this approach. And we can go ahead and turn, Phineas. So just to close it up, again, it's a special assessment. It would be, because we're in the process of finalizing the summer 2020 bill. This would be proposed for the winter 2020 tax bill. Just for example purposes, the initial projections, if we just took the per parcel method, and again, that's where we just calculate the number of improved parcels across the city, we would be looking at an assessment of about $55 per parcel. The goal would be to generate $430,000 in revenues for the general fund. And as I mentioned earlier, without this special assessment right now, just based on the way that the budget is currently structured, because we're having to replace some of those projected revenues that we took out recently, we're then going to have to look at some further expense savings, some further cuts out of the general fund. So this was an alternative that we wanted to present. Again, it's being used in neighboring communities, and it's something that could help address some of the financial pressures that the city's general fund is facing.
Mr. Carrington, if we don't consider this, then what other cuts will we have to look at?
We will, primarily have to look at some further cuts when we start talking in connection with headcount and probably both public safety and administrative positions.
Wow.
So, Mr. Carrington, you were suggesting that we have another meeting sometime this week, next week? Yeah,
obviously we presented a lot of information. The water rates were provided last Thursday, I believe. Presented the updated and proposed approved budget on Saturday. which includes this special assessment. We're just now giving council an opportunity to digest this, just presenting it to the general public. So obviously we want to provide some time for council to absorb all of this, ask any questions that they may have, and give us an opportunity as needed to update the current draft of the approved budget.
So what would you suggest that we get back for a special meeting?
I think we could do it as soon as Thursday, depending upon council and how quickly they can, absorb all this, process all this, and provide some feedback.
When is the latest that we could possibly have it done? I see you, Councilwoman Wiley.
Yeah, I've been sitting here. Nobody would unmute me.
I can only see the top of your head. You can't see
I just saw your hand go up. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate it. In reference to this this lighting assessment, it seems to be you're raising the water rates. You're assessing a tax on people who have not worked in the past 6 months. They didn't do any foreclosures this year, so that means they're going to be twice as many next year. And I don't think that it's feasible for us to say that the burden is totally on them. Now, and this is money that most of us in the city of Inkster just didn't pay, okay? So the other alternatives you're looking at, have we given any serious consideration to the public safety administrator? I know you're gonna have to pay somebody to do that, but still you're eliminating at least $100,000 there.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the public safety administrator would have to be a police officer, a sworn police officer, and a firefighter. So they would have to have those credentials in order to do that, unless we have really creative, and then that would be something that we would possibly, go ahead.
Someone was mentioned in that vein, Michael Moore from E-Course.
Yeah, he's currently in E-Course right now.
Yeah.
He used to work here, yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out how we go about asking this much of them, of the residents, without having done everything we can do. So I understand that you're talking about, that people will have to go, or that people will have to have reduced funds, or people have to reduce things. But this budget needs to be passed before the 1st of July. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, most certainly. Well, yeah, we don't want to.
Within the next 2 weeks, let's put it that way. And the things that you're presenting, like the wish money, I still call that 150 wish money, because it's not really there. And I don't know how you do it in city government, but when I do my budget, I have to have that money in order to budget it. So I think that, and we have been talking among ourselves, and I have been putting some things together that may be kind of harsh, but we would like to present those to you all anyway within the next day or two, to not put the entire burden on them. You're talking about raising their rates, raising their taxes. Then we have the lawsuit. We have Noreen Brown that's going to be on the lawsuit. We have pending things that are going to come down the pike, and those are going to be put on the taxes. I can't see the people being able to function under that weight. That's it.
Yeah, and I think we've definitely been struggling with that and going back and forth. And let's say this, so we're all on the same page. We're not assuming what the water rates are. These are mandates from the state. So the water rates are what they are. As it relates to the lighting assessment, I totally agree with you. At the same time, we're looking at cutting more police, and we're looking at cutting more fire, and we're already pretty much a skeleton crew here in administration. So those are really the only places that's affecting the general fund. So I'm looking forward to having those discussions with you all. So whatever you can come up with, let's figure it out, because that's what we have to do together.
Well,
Because this is affecting all of us.
yeah, it definitely is. And when you're talking about cutting police, what exactly are you talking about? Because was that the person you had in the email that was sent to us? Because as I understand it, he's retired part-time and doesn't get benefits. I don't see how that's going to impact the budget that much.
Mr. Carey?
So we in the budget draft that was sent on Saturday, the draft of the approved budget, we had changed the reductions in the fire department. You know, the recommended budget had 6 reductions in the budgeted positions at the fire department. We reduced that by 1, taking the reductions down to 5. And to help offset that, there were a number of different things that were going on with that budget draft. But one of the things that we did reduce by about $50,000 the amount of salaries within the police department. Wasn't etched in stone exactly how that was going to be implemented, but we did identify a specific number, and that's what we had placed into the budget draft that was shared with council on Saturday.
Councilwoman Wiley, did you have any other questions or comments?
Probably do. I'm looking at my paper here.
Okay.
Because when we lay off, or if we do things of that nature, and we still are retaining non-essential personnel, Lucy gonna have some explaining to do. So.
I totally agree. Everything's on the table.
Yep.
Hold on one second. Councilwoman Wiley?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that's complete for now.
Yes, ma'am. Councilman Williams?
I just wanted to, I noticed something. In 2017, the rates was $13.75. Okay, and up to 2020, okay, went up to $15.45, which is $1.70. Okay, and now you're talking about for 1 year we're going to raise the rates $1.30 per unit.
Yeah, that
more than that because of the mandate. We're looking at almost, and I know Treasurer, you don't want to get all the way to it, but you're talking about 60 million, and then at least another 10 million for the Rouge project. You're talking about 70 million that's mandated to us now within the next 2 years for us to actually start the project. And we have to tell the state how we're going to do it. If we don't, then they're going to impose it on us anyway with fines and sanctions. So it's just unfortunate that this has happened to us this way, but it is just what it is.
Yeah, but I know a lot of that goes to the county, okay? And you don't know exactly.
Let me make sure. Let's back up real quick because we don't want to make we don't want to make assumptions. Or is Mr. Carrington, is this money going to the county that we're talking about?
Are you referring to the Rouge Valley?
The water rates with the Rouge Valley and the infrastructure. Yeah,
no, and Jerome can speak in more detail. It's basically the Inkster is a part of a certain group of communities that are responsible for that cleanup. So it's not, my understanding is it's not going to the county, so to speak. It's our share of the bill for the cleanup of the Rouge Valley, if you will. And I don't know if Jerome is able to chime in at all.
Guess we got to unmute me. So to the mayor's point and to Councilman Williams, the money's not going to the Rouge. I mean, the money's not going to the county. The county took out a loan. They took out an SFR loan of $55 million to clean up the Rouge. Each community that is funded and pays into that fund is responsible in sharing in that cost. And I know you weren't on council, or I think it was a year ago, or maybe 2 years, when Gliwa came and did the presentation, because we had to adopt the resolution. And one of the council people on there asked a question and said, what if we don't adopt this resolution? And the response was the Eagle would probably take us to court and sue us. That's just how serious it is when it comes to environmental. So we share in that cost along with 17 other communities. What our cost will be determined in October, like Mr. Carrington say. I don't know when those 2 payments will come about, but we will have to make those payments, and we still are part of the rules because we come in at the lower end of the rules. We're at the bottom end of the rules, but we're part of the rules community. So there's no getting around those costs.
I can understand that, but what I'm saying, what I want to make clear here also, over the years from 2017, okay, we have increased the water every unit $1.70, okay, and we didn't have these mandated. So what I'm saying is now we're talking about another $1.30, okay. Now I know a lot of money over the years. Okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but a lot of money over the years we have shipped a lot of our DPS workers and various things like that under the water department because of the money that was coming in. Okay, so take it away from the general fund. I can understand that, but now to come back and ask 1 year time for a person $1.30 per unit of water, you know, I think it's something that we're gonna have to sleep on.
Well, Reverend Williams, let me correct you on one thing. We have not shifted a lot of people into the water department. I once upon a time had 35 people in my department. That was roads, water, parks, and maintenance for the garage and buildings. I lost people. I got down to 8. I'm trying to build the department back up yet. The people I didn't lose were in the water department. That's why I didn't lose them because they were in the water department. But the people that were paid out of general fund jobs were eliminated. They weren't just laid off, they positions that all those departments were eliminated. So now I'm down to managing a water department and roads, because those are the 2 specialized budgets that I have that are outside of general fund. So I took a tremendous hit.
Any other questions, Councilman Williams?
No, I was just wondering about the increases that we had and what did we do with it. But that's okay. I can answer it another time.
Okay. Any other comments from this body?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
I know you guys say you're going to still do some research into trying to find ways that we can eliminate that, $432,000
Yes,
for
ma'am.
assessment. Okay, now I know you guys have put into the budget that 6 firefighters will be laid off.
5.
What 5 is 5?
Yes,
what
ma'am.
impact would, on the revenue side, would that be as far as the ambulance? Because I do know from ambulance, it's like $900,000 revenue. Would that have an impact on that dollar amount?
One of the key things is with that revenue is for us to keep 2 rescue vehicles, 2 ambulance vehicles in service for each of our 3 shifts. Currently, we have 3 shifts daily at the fire department. We operate in 3 shifts, not 3 shifts daily, but we operate in 3 shifts. And so one of the goals is to make sure we are able to do that or make every attempt to do that. The reduction would take us down to as little as, instead of where we are currently at 9 per shift, we would go down to 7 per shift. And the reason why we emphasize that 7 number was because that would allow us to try and keep 2 ambulances on the road on each shift help us make sure we continue to be able to get that revenue, continue to get that revenue. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is, you know, you've got people that may be out, may be off, you know, may vacancies and whatnot. It definitely puts us in a you know, we have less cushion for when something is not going as projected with any particular shift. When we have 9, we've got more flexibility, obviously, than when we have 7. We understand that, you know, we took that into consideration, but it would, you know, certainly be a much a more difficult task to do that with a 7-person shift than when than what we currently have with a 9-person shift. But we are aware of that, and we're trying to make sure we do what we can to not hamper our revenue in that regard.
Okay. All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Carrington.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Wiley.
Yes. Just 2 things in relationship to the budget. Number 1 is our legal fees. I think the budget stated $1.2 million this year, recommended and requested. And
oh, sorry.
Is that not right?
That's
error?
That is not. That would not be 100% accurate. I think I understand where you're pulling that number from. But go ahead, ma'am, and answer
the most recent budget you sent.
Sure. But I think it's just the way in which it's laid out in the budget. It may not be completely accurate.
Can you speak to that, Mr. Carrington?
What was the number? And I was just pulling up the particular number.
And some change.
You had did you quote the 1.012 number?
Well, I just said that's a lot, and I've been saying that for a while. And
I just wanted to make sure that was not. I didn't have
whatever was
particular
one
page.
I know I saw 1 with a comma and 6 things after it.
Right. So if I'm referring to the same number you are, the way that we allocate or categorize this up under the Department 266, which is City Attorney, we have the legal fees, and we also have legal settlement. So the money that we're paying for any tax judgment or something like that, any kind of legal settlement, it also is included in that department. So that money's obviously not going to the attorneys. It's just for accounting purposes how we capture and present the money that we collect via the tax judgment, and we pay it out to the plaintiffs in that case. So that $1 million figure, again, is not at all reflective of what we're paying in terms of our legal fees to our city attorney.
So what is?
We have, as you know, we've got 2 components to the contract with the city attorney. One is the $6,000 a month fixed fee for a total next year of $72,000, and then we've got what I refer to as the variable component. And currently, the budget has $300,000 in there for a total of $372,000 for projected legal fees.
Okay, well, just in addition to that, just giving. I think I mentioned something about a cap the last time we were having this. If this is something we could look into, like a cap for all the cases they tried or whatever, then just paying out constantly, no matter how long it takes. Just a suggestion. That was just one of the things. And I had one more thing, but you made me forget it. Taking so long. So
sorry about that.
I'm going to wait until it pops back in my head, and then I'll bug you again.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay. All right then. So understanding that as it relates to the action item, we won't take action today, Mr. Carrington. We'll come back on Thursday.
Yes, if that is enough time for council, I would suggest Thursday just to make sure we stay on track with trying to get this budget in place and
That
settled.
way, if we have to do it again, then we'll have enough time to actually meet again.
Exactly.
Okay. What's your pleasure, council? We would have to table this item until Thursday.
I move the table.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any nays? Ayes have it, motion carries. The item is tabled until Thursday. Special meeting Thursday is 6 o'clock appropriate, Council. Mayor Pro Tem Howard, I know that you
Yes.
work. And Chisholm, you good? I know you work.
Yep.
Washington, you good? Okay. Wally, you good with that?
Sure.
Rev, you good with that?
Yep.
All right, good then. Let's get that out, City
You
Clerk.
forgot one.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor, you forgot one.
Shaw said he was good. That's why he supported the table on the motion. Shaw, you good?
No, I'm saying,
good. I'm good.
Miss Washington, Councilwoman Washington, I don't know if she weighed in.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Washington.
I'm
You
fine.
good? You good? Yeah, I thought I said Washington. I'm sorry. I know she works. You good, Washington?
Yep.
Okay, good then. So if we can get that posted and get that out, that we will have a special meeting this Thursday. What's the date on that?
June 18th.
June 18th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. Is that enough time for us, City Clerk?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, then let's move right along. Item C.
Item C is consideration accepting the quote from Century Cement Company, Inc. to repair asphalt sections along the pathway, a swell in Colonial Park and Ballards at Justice Court. The cost is $29,450 plus a 12% contingency cost of $3,534. Totaling funds requested for $32,984.
So move.
There's support?
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Any discussion?
No. Yes, Mr. Chair. Now, is this for the last year's budget? I mean, this year's budget right here, Mr. Carrington?
Jerome, is this going to, I know we've got, Jerome, are we
Yeah, before the pandemic hit, it would have been for this year's budget. Even if if it was approved tonight and we got started next week, it's going to carry over to next year's budget because in the lateness of we're at the end of our fiscal year. So I would definitely say it's going to carry over to next year's budget.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Looks like we lost the mayor.
Okay, Felicia, we should just go ahead and vote on this and just move on until he come back in, or what's your pleasure?
Yes, I mean, he had called the question already, so.
Right, okay. So is there any more discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those say nay, any nays? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion approved.
Public participation, Councilwoman Howard is the next one.
Okay, public participation.
I have one comment that was emailed today to all of us, and I will read it into the record. It says, on the evening of the mayoral debate moderated by Fox 2 Detroit's Charlie Langdon, now Mayor Wimberly made a promise that if elected mayor, he would take a pay cut. According to the proposed July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 fiscal year budget, I do not see any indication that this has happened. Mayor Wimberly has stated that the city of Inkster is in a deficit spending and layoffs and cuts may have to be done. Will he be keeping the promise he publicly made to keep the citizens of Inkster to take a salary cut? Thank you for your response. And that was from Connie R. Mitchell.
Okay.
And I don't have any other public participation that were emailed to me.
For the public again to speak during this time, if you called in, the number you press *9 from your handset to raise your hand. And any other persons who are viewing, we have one hand raised, and then any other persons who are viewing, you should have that option from your device, whether it's a laptop or tablet or phone, to raise your hand. And once your hand is raised, you'll be recognized to speak. I'm ready to unmute this particular caller, Mayor Pro.
Yes, this is Yvette Brock again. In regards to the water rate increases, just from a citizen's standpoint, it's not ideal for us, but I think the citizen could handle it as long as we're not adding other things to the budget. You know, as far as this lighting tax, what they call it, assessment, is a tax. I would definitely not want that on my tax bill, just for the people who are not paying taxes on time. Now you're putting interest on top of that, and we're being kind of punished because we're paying for these lawsuits. We're paying for the need of extra water, which I do understand. And now you want to tax us on lighting. I thought that was part of our taxes anyway. So I don't want to have to pay these extra taxes, and I don't feel like the city council members are necessarily questioning enough about the spending. No question, my comment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brown. Okay, do you have any more, Councilman Chisholm?
Nope, I don't see any other hands raised. Again, for callers wishing to speak, you press, the mayor's coming back into this time.
Okay.
Press *9 to raise your hand, or you press the raise hand option from your device. But again, at this time, we don't have anyone we have, one other caller. One other caller.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, hi. So I want to just propose to the city council.
I need a name.
Can you hear me?
Mayor Pro Tem Howard, for the record.
I'm sorry?
If you can state
the record.
State your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Barbara Albert, calling from the Middle Park Manor Block, calling on behalf of the Middle Park Manor Block Club.
All right, go ahead with your statement.
Okay, and my proposal is that this Saturday, June 20th, we are requesting from you all assistance in having something like our Juneteenth celebration, but we're having a parade through our neighborhood to say we're free to come out now and just to lift our spirits. And we're just going to do a parade starting from the Inkster complex and through our neighborhood, from the Inkster complex to Parkwood, down to Henry Ruff, and back into our to our own homes. We're not doing any public gathering. Everyone will be in their own vehicles, or they will be walking or riding their bikes. And we just want to put that to the city council. Ask for, I guess, what am I saying? We're asking for your assistance because we may need to block off a street or two, or just have some police assistance, or it'd be pretty early. It's gonna be 12 at 12 p.m. in the afternoon, Saturday kind of morning. So it should be pretty good. But just want to bring that to your attention that this is what we're planning. And could we have your assistance?
You have a phone number, ma'am?
I just sent an email. So I heard the city clerk said she didn't get an email. So yes, I have a phone number.
Is it the 734-772?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
All right, good. Then we'll follow back up with you. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Chisholm, I see you have another person to raise their hand.
Yep. And I'm getting ready to unmute them for their 1 minute public participation. Just ask that they state their name for the record.
Hello.
Yes, state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Indea Berry.
All right, and your call in and your statement?
I am requesting permission to block off my residential street for a Juneteenth celebration on Friday, June 19th. The celebration itself would be from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m., but I would need to block off the street from about 10:30 to 8 p.m.
And City Clerk, what would she need to do to come in to get, and is that something that we could?
The normal process is that you normally they will do this request 30 days out. I do understand that we've been closed due to COVID. There's some procedure, there's some approvals that the process has to go through different departments. And so I don't know if those approvals will be able to get back in that quick of a fashion. It has to go through several departments for the approval. She's supposed to have signatures of the street, of her residents in the street, letting them know that the street will be blocked off, and they have to sign kind of like a petition to let that she has permission to do so. So there are some parameters that are put in place when you block off a street.
Understanding COVID and what's happening in the nation, it would be, speaking just as the mayor, of course, I would want to support something like this. Is it something that we could do to help expedite the process? If council is amenable to that? City Clerk.
Yes, I'm more concerned about the signatures of the residents. Her having to get everybody's signature. That's what I'm most concerned about. I mean, I can kind of push it through to get the approvals from the actual department heads, but the signatures of the resident, of her neighbors.
Yeah, and I think, Brianna, can you speak to that? I think you already got that, right?
Yeah, I've spoken to my neighbors already. Everyone has been accepting it. They've been offering their own money and their own yards and their own resources to make this happen. I've received contributions from residents along the street as well as residents throughout the city. I've received a lot of support. I'm almost 75% of the way to my GoFundMe goal. It's just a matter of getting permission to have blocked off for the allotted time.
Well, Mayor, she can come to City Hall tomorrow. We are open between 8:30 and 4, and she can bring the signatures up there. I can get the process started fairly quickly with the department head for the approval.
Okay.
Part of it. And then council would need to approve tonight, maybe hers contingent upon she has the signature of her neighbors.
I mean, could we possibly throw that on Thursday? I know it's pushing it, but could we throw it on approval for Thursday or no? The meeting on Thursday, the 6th?
Yes.
Continue, she come in tomorrow and do what she needs to do?
Yes.
Okay. All right, young lady, you heard what you need to do. So
yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
We're located, so we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
Continue that energy. I'm excited about the event.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your support.
All righty. Councilman, you got anybody else?
Yes.
All right.
One other person for 1 minute public participation. Please state your name for the record. They are unmuted.
Hello again. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. This is Barbara Albert from the Middle Department of Block Hub. So again, I'm not sure if I made it clear that we would do a car parade, and our car parade would start from, I'm sorry?
You made it clear. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wasn't for sure. So we did talk to our neighbors as I was listening to the young lady, and we have We have probably, I think 50%. We haven't finished going through the other streets, but we have about 50% participation, and it should last us about an hour, maybe two.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.
We don't have notes.
All right, then moving right along, City Clerk.
Yes, I would like to say that we are definitely getting those AV applications in, but I would like to let residents know that when you send the applications in to receive your ballot, you have to check if you would like both elections, or if you would like the August election or the November election. You have to check one of those boxes. I sent back 45 applications today where the boxes were not checked at all. They just didn't check anything. They put their signature and didn't check what election they wanted a ballot for. And also be sure to make sure that you sign. I can't issue you a ballot if I don't have your signature. So you have to pay particular attention to those things. Check the boxes for your AV applications. Make sure you check a box and you also have your signature. Thank you.
Just a quick question as it relates to the ballots. When they're returned, you can return them in the mailbox here at City Hall.
Yes, yes. Due to the COVID, we are allowing you to put that into the drop box and the treasurer's drop box on the side of the building. And we have spoken with that department, and they bring them over to us every morning.
Okay. And as it relates to the actual election, I know that you had spoke before about possibly having a secured box at City Hall for people to drop off their ballots as well. Are you?
Yeah, I'm working. Yes, I'm in the process of working on that now. We don't have the ballots even yet. We don't get the ballots until the 25th. So we don't have them yet, but I'm definitely working on that.
Okay. Keep up the good work. I know you guys are busy.
Oh man. Yes.
Any questions for City Clerk and Council? All right, Treasurer.
No comments.
I think that's the first time I done heard that.
I think I've talked enough for one night.
Okay. Councilwoman Washington, you want to start us off?
I'll pass. I don't have anything for tonight.
All right. Councilwoman Watley?
Yes, sir. In fact, I remembered what I was going to ask, and this time I wrote it down. So I was wondering, in reference to the budget, has anybody given any consideration to the city clerk's work share program? Now, I realize it sounded pretty good when I read it, but apparently that's going to take a dedicated person to facilitate that particular thing, but it's free money, basically. I mean, you can keep your employees and the state pays some and we pay some. So is that being given any consideration?
Oh yeah, most definitely we're doing that. But Karen, you can speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah, so we are, Councilwoman Watley, and to everyone, we are looking at the program that I believe Ms. Watley is referring to is what's referred to as the Michigan Work Share Program. Part of it is funded through the I think it's the CARES Act. Getting tired here. Through the federal government, and it's kind of a program that allows for it's designed to avoid layoffs and for reductions in the number of hours that are provided. So we're certainly looking at that, seeing if there's a way that we can take advantage of that program. One of the key components of that program runs out in July, so that's one of the issues we're trying to navigate around. But we're trying to look at as many alternatives as we can find.
Okay, so that was the other thing, but I have more. Never fear. On May 11th, I sent a couple policies around to mayor and council, and I asked for input, and the only person I got something back from was Councilman Chisholm. So I was wondering if these policies that were wrote and given to you If you not responding meant you tacitly agreed with them, and we can maybe go ahead and implement, that's something I need to find out. Hello, hello. Okay, and the also I was wondering how many of my colleagues are interested in attending the department head meeting that they have every Tuesday after a council meeting, or they have Monday on the off week. Is anybody but me interested in attending those?
I would like to, but unfortunately at this time, I won't be able to attend the meeting.
But if you had the ability, you'd still want to be able to attend them. I know the last administration allowed it. And I was wondering if maybe we have to adopt a policy or something that says we can do that.
Yeah, you know, that I think that probably needs to fall to the attorney. I mean, and I don't have a problem with anyone coming into our department head meetings at the same time. I think it's just courtesy and respect and understanding that the administration is separate from this body, and that's why it's designed that way.
But
So
it's not necessarily separate. But we are the second level of it. And if we don't know what's going on, I mean, it's like anything else. You are administration, we're legislative, so on and so forth. So
exactly. And you
we're
said
not able to do what we need to do for the citizens if we don't know what's going on. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I have no problem with letting you know what's going on. All you got to do is ask me. And any reports that I've been giving out, I've been actually sending those reports. Any reports you need, I'll send them to you. If you want to come to the department head meetings, all you have to do is call and ask me. I don't have a problem with that because I want you to be involved in the process and what's going on as it relates to.
What's the reason for calling and asking you?
Because I am the CEO of the company and everyone works for me except the clerk and the attorney that works for us as a body.
No, you don't work for you. You work for us. We don't work.
I didn't say that you work for me. What I said was that I'm the CEO of the organization, which is what it is.
And to do my job, I need to ask you if it's okay if I do my.
Well, that's not your job. Your job is oversight as it relates to legislation and policy, and as it relates to also the budget, which we're talking about now, in order for me to operate. And
my job encompasses a lot of things, and to do my job, I have to be effective by having access. Now that
you do have access. It's just respect.
That you
do have access. It's just respect.
At the beginning of your tenure has not been evident.
One more time, I'm sorry.
I said that transparency that you promised at the beginning of your term has not been evident, at least not with me. I don't know how the others are receiving this.
Yeah, well, let me say this. If you ask me directly for anything, you'll get it. You don't have to go behind my back.
So I have to ask
administration for anything that works for me.
If I need something, I have to ask you directly, no matter if your purview or not.
No, what I'm saying to you, Councilwoman, that if again, you want respect, you give respect. And in this position, as we talk about transparency, right from the beginning, I had no transition into the office at all. And I invited all of the council members, yourself included, to come into daily meetings with me, along with my staff, and help me transition into this office because the previous administration just left it wide open. So I have no problem with working with you. I would love for you to come to the table, as I've asked you before, and I'm asking you now. If you want to come to the table with me,
but
with respect,
I have to get a special.
I'm the mayor.
I ask you if it's okay if I come to the table. I was elected just like you are.
Yeah, but you're not elected as the mayor.
And I don't want to be the mayor, but I don't want the mayor stopping me from doing my job. And that's what you tentatively are doing when I'm not
doing that at all.
To ask someone else in this administration a question.
No, I'm just saying that, because you understand your role as a legislator, then you understand my role as the mayor. It's two different, and that's why you have the legislative body, the executive body, which I'm the executive body, and you have the judicial body. We're all separate, but I just happen to be a part of this body as well.
And you micromanage all of that, correct? I have to come to you if I want.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all.
So what are you saying? You're saying I can come to these meetings now, but I
what I'm saying to you
when
is
I
that
want to come.
With respect for my authority and my administration, I would love for you to be there. You're there to help. You're not being a hindrance to the progression of this community.
And I have always been a help to the progression of this unity when I have been allowed to be.
Okay. Not a problem.
Let me say this. Can I say this?
Yes, you can. Were you finished, Councilwoman Wiley? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that does it for me.
All right. Go ahead, Councilman Williams.
I think it's wonderful. The mayor, you said that you could invite some of us to your meeting, but we are policymakers, and it's your job to run the daily operation. Okay, and I don't see why, unless we're coming in there to help encourage your operation or something like that. I don't see no reason why a council person have to sit up into your meetings of operation. Okay, because just remember, we're policymakers. We can't make any decisions on the operation of the city that comes through the mayor's department. But we are policymakers. The policymakers, we establish policy that controls that department. Okay. Now, I've heard this before, let me into the meeting, I want to come to the meeting, I want to know what's going on and stuff like that. And I steady hear the mayor say, whatever you need to know, I'll tell you. I mean, you can't ask for no more than that, okay? I think that somehow we need to, as a council person and the mayor, get some truth of understanding, okay? It's some things that, I watch every last one of us council that we talked about different subjects in that budget, you see what I'm saying, that we brought out, okay? And we're looking at the whole total picture of our operation coming up, and it ain't looking good. So therefore, I know somehow we got to put our heads together and try to figure out what we're gonna do to keep this city moving forward. Now, for us sitting in the mayor's meeting and stuff like that, that's his administration there. Sometimes, and let me say this, and not all the time, but sometimes, we can take a council person and sit them into the mayor's meeting and stuff like that, and it could cause him to lose. It could cause him to lose his authority of what he have to do to operate the city. Okay, so we have to be careful when we come in there. Sometimes we get into the place where we wants to be part and start trying to micromanage, but we're just council person. We're not responsible for the operation. The mayor is, okay? Our job is to establish policy. And that's why I'm on that one subject about policy. I think some of these policies that we're talking about moving this city forward. And we can different things like that. We need to look at some of our policies that we have. We are killing this city. We are some unfriendly people. Or if somebody coming here wants to invest their money in this community, I would run here just like them guys did the other day. They ran out of here, okay? Because while we sitting there trying to play hard-nosed, Garden City, Westland, and some of the other cities around us are opening their doors and doing anything friendly to try to bring businesses in here, okay? So we got a lot to think about, okay? We're gonna move this city forward, okay? We can talk and we can do all of this, but the bottom line is we're gonna become losers if in fact we don't come together. Okay, now we don't have to meet, the council does not have to meet all 7 people, but at least 3 of us at any given time can meet and discuss things that we think can help progress this and deliver it to the mayor to get his approval and try to move this city forward. Because I'm gonna tell you something. People are saying that, hey, what are we doing? And we inherit a lot. We inherited things now we got to deal with. water structure, general fund budget, and our police department, fire department, all these different cuts that we had to inherit. And it's not fair to us. We got to take the licks, but we got to be strong enough to come together and understand how we're going to work this out. We can't leave all this in Darren's hands. Like he said, he gave his opinion today. He said, "But that ain't what I'm just trying to offer some solutions." Before we put all our heads together and quit, what I say, nitpicking, and come up with some things that we need to do to make this city. I was really impressed when some of the things that Mayor Pro Tem asked for, Chisholm asked us some things the other day in there. You understand? But we need to come together and let's come up with some solutions, because they are solutions to all the problems that we have. And that's just what I don't leave in your mind. We got, I'm not concerned about coming to the mayor's meeting, but what I am concerned is the mayor keep me informed on what's going on and what movement that he's making. Okay, and then now that's what I'm concerned about. I don't want to go out here and tell somebody the mayor going west when he going east. You see what I'm saying? As long as he keep me abreast of what's going on, then I can move. And that's what we all should be. We are policymakers. Love y'all. Peace. I didn't mean to talk that long, but I think it's just a talk of unity that we need to come together, because a lot of things we got to come together on a lot of things. I heard some things Chisholm said. I heard some things Ms. Howard saying. I heard some things Ms. Wiley saying, and various things Ms. Washington. But let's take all of them and take them and organize them, and then go through it and see what we can do to make this city a better place. Because right now, Inkster in trouble. Thank you.
And thank you. Councilman Chisholm.
Yep, I sent an email out to everybody in response to what Mr. Carrington has sent us speaking to the budget. I did talk to him verbally, so I got a lot of clarification, and we discussed a few things. And per my email, I did say that I'll be following up with my suggestions or recommendations, things like that for the budget. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Shaw?
Yeah, I just want to say, I just want to welcome the two code enforcement officers that we have now. I've seen I've seen one of them on the beat already. So I just wanted to welcome them to the city of Inkster. And also with the assessment of the taxes for the lighting, it's one thing that we try to impose this onto the residents without taking it to the ballot for consideration. That's where I'm at concerning that. I think we ought to take it to the people and let them decide whether or not they want this imposed assessment on the lighting. And also, with the cuts that we're going to have to make, and I have said this over and over, I know the storm is coming. We've been talking about it. We've been in this position before. We know the tough decisions that has to be made. And we're going to have to make some very tough decisions. We're going to get some tomatoes thrown at us. And there's going to be some people that's not going to like the decisions that we have to make to bring the city out of the deficit that it's in. We was before in a consent agreement, and we had to make some tough decisions then. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions now. The only thing that's different, some people talked about, there's a different time, a different age, and what have you. And I understand that, but what still remains the same is the situation that we're in and we had faced before. And we have to be resolved in the things in which we're going to do. We have to stay together in doing it. We have to be on a united front in making these decisions, and even also with some of the solutions that we're going to come about. Now, Mr. Chair, I talked about, the police and fire, and one of the things I have talked about is sending this to the ballot. We should be able to take up a meal or two for public safety, and it can alleviate some headache on the budget. We are in a good position to do it now. The election is coming up in August and November. We can get it on the ballot. We can get this on the ballot, have the people decide. And this could be a way for them to speak and what they want for as public safety, instead of us having to chop and cut, because we did it before and people didn't like it. They didn't like it, but we had to do it in order to bring us back into a solvent position. Now, as we've seen, in previous years with the water rates, we should have been consistent throughout the years, but unfortunately, we went up and down. The previous council had to make some decisions, and I understand that. But we have to keep a consistency so that we will not expend ourselves right out of the city of Inkster, because it will be expensive to live here. And if we don't have no great attractive factors, people are not going to want to be here. The residents are not going to want. I'm not going to want to be here because it's very expensive to live here, let alone have some attractive things in the city to go to. So just think about that, and my colleagues to think about that. We can get this on the ballot for public safety, and it can alleviate millions of dollars. So I just want us to consider that. And I am on board with all of my colleagues, because I know the importance of us having to work together, not to bicker, not to fight, because that ain't what the people want to see. We will be a laughing stock as we continue to attack the mayor and continue to attack each other. For what? It does none of us no good, because we should all have the same purpose, and that's the quality of life in this city. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Shaw. Mayor Pro Tem Howard.
I have nothing.
All right, then. To the community, City Hall is open. We had a smooth transition today. It was our first day actually opening. Thank DPS, also the police chief that came over with us first thing this morning, was working out the city clerk, of course, and everything that you do. So we've been just moving right along. We're encouraging everybody, when you come to City Hall, we do have some masks at the front desk, and of course hand sanitizer at the front desk, but we want you to wear your mask. So we're operating 8:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday. Is that correct, City Clerk?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right. As it relates to the Opens Meetings Act, now I believe that David Jones is on the line. And David, if you can speak to that a little bit as it relates to the executive order and us having Zoom calls and us coming back into City Hall to actually have public meetings. Is that something that we need to do right away, or how should we proceed with that?
Well, the executive order goes through the month of June, which permits it. There have been some lobbying to extend the meetings and the Open Meetings Act via electronically. It hasn't happened yet, but several entities are lobbying the governor to extend it. But at least through the end of the month of June, it's permissible.
Okay. So if they don't extend it, then we have to look at the first meeting in July being held as an open meeting. And how do we cover social distancing?
Well, I think that's an administrative issue. We can, try, depending on how many people want to come, just try to monitor the attendees and the seats, maybe put only so many seats, take some seats out of the actual council chambers, like where there will be 3 seats, maybe just have them 1. And once those seats are occupied, indicate that, for public safety and health concerns, that we're at capacity, and we encourage people to view the meetings online or through other methods.
Yeah. Well, with the leadership of our governor, we definitely have seen the flattening of our numbers in the city of Inkster. Each time that we would have a death in the city of Inkster related to COVID, I would get a call from the county execs team, and we haven't received one of those in almost 3 weeks. So with the case numbers at 343 for the entire city of Inkster, we haven't had any deaths in about two and a half weeks. So we definitely see that we're flattening out in the numbers, but we definitely have to stay vigilant as it relates to social distancing, making sure that we're wearing our masks when we're out in public. As it relates to the census, thank you, Curtis Barge. You have been doing an excellent job, and Curtis has informed me that she's been reaching out to each one of the council members, and she's partnered them with one of the count committee members. So I encourage you guys to continue to work with them. It's one of the most important things, of course, outside of COVID as it relates to our community. We hear it all the time as it relates to what the resources will do for us. I believe that the number is $3,000. Is it $3,000 to $5,000, Steve? Regina, is that about right? Is that the number? 3,000 or 5,000?
5,000.
It's 5,000 that we would get per person within the city of Inkster that's counted. So Inkster be counted. We're about 60% right now. I don't know if Curtis Barge is on the line, but she has some things that's coming up here in July. She's looking to do a parade also within the city of Inkster, and I encourage all of us to get involved and really wrap our arms around as we're getting back out into some sense of normal, that we're out, of course, calling at least 10 people, talking to them about the census, but also too about making sure that we're filling out the census as well. As it relates to the state of the city, and former Councilwoman Mitchell is on the line, and she proposed some questions to us as a body, and I will be responding to those in writing. But I wanted to make sure that I addressed it to the general body and the general populace. As it relates to the state of the city, back in, I believe it was February, the question that came up from Shirley Hankerson as it relates to me doing the State of the City address. And I kind of explained at the time that, I just was getting into office for the most part. We were wrapping our hands around the budget as it relates to the deficit that we were dealing with. And we were looking to do something in April. Well, because of COVID, that hasn't happened. And understand that we've been out of the office March, April, May, and now we're still on Zoom in June. So we will be coming back, hopefully stronger than ever, and we'll be able to give a sense of where we're at as it relates to the community as a whole. As it relates to the downtown development project that was talked about with the previous administration, we do have plans for a downtown development. There was never a developer at the table that had signed a memorandum of understanding with our organization, which meaning that we didn't have a developer locked in to actually do the project in the city of Inkster. The project was projected at $30 million. No matter what the administration is, and if the administration changes, however, if a developer decides to walk away because the administration changes, then that's something that we don't want to have in our community anyway. When we talk about a unified front and truly working together, we want to make sure that we have, as we're talking about people coming in our community, doing business, and we're being open-minded and we're being friendly to people and doing business, we want to have great corporate partners moving together. Now, I will say this to former Mayor Nolan. If you do have the resources to get this done as it relates to the downtown development project, I'm open to talk. I want to move forward. I actually own quite a few properties in the downtown area. Since 2008, I've been talking about downtown development of the city of Inkster. Not only have I put my blood, sweat, and tears in it, I've actually put my money into it, and I actually own property in that area that we're looking to develop. So I'm excited about possibly putting out an RFP or RFQ with the council support as we bring this project together. I think it makes sense. It actually looks like a pretty decent project overall. I just know as I was on the former side of it and I was looking through the project, I had perused it, and some of the properties that was actually included in the project, they weren't owned by the city. And as a business owner in the actual downtown development that was actually being proposed, I was never approached about being a part of it. So I actually looked at some other businesses that's in that area right now, like the old La Fontaine. I actually reached out to them and talked to them, and they said that they're actually moving back in the building. They're looking to open back up a specialty shop and a pump shop. And I asked them, did they talk to the previous administration about it, downtown development? No, but their building was actually included in. So we want to make sure, as we talk about transparency, Councilwoman Wiley, that we're all working together, that we're all singing in the same voice. So as we talk about our vision for Inkster, number one, we have to be safe. Number two, we have to get clean. Our community as a whole, just overall, it's our responsibility, everyone's responsibility. If you see tall grass, like Councilman Shaw said, the new code enforcement officers, Don, she's doing a tremendous job. We're actually looking to add another code enforcement officer. Call us, let us know. Tall grass, debris, Jerome and his folks, they've been doing a tremendous job out in the community trying to get the grass down. So we have to work together in order to get our community and make it attractive. The number one goal for me right now in this office is to make sure that we stay safe and that we stay clean. And that's what I'm working on right now. And I will be expressing that more as we move forward within, of course, our community and working together. Now, lastly for me, Councilman Williams and Councilwoman Watley, Rhonda did send you out. She told me to make sure that I reminded you that she sent out an invitation for you to join me. The director of HUD has reached out to me as it relates to some issues as for housing and what's happening in housing currently right now. Chief Riley sent out and Chief Ratliff sent out an actual email with some pictures, and we included the director of housing from the Michigan State, from the level of Michigan, the state of Michigan. And I want for us to be on the call with them. And the call is actually tomorrow morning. So you guys should have that email. Please confirm with her that you guys can jump on. Because the reason why I want you guys on the call is because it's your district that's being affected. So I hope that you join me on that. All right, then. I know that we have, Adriana, I know that LaFontaine is supposed to go through site plan review. We're working on it. So Ms. Jordan just actually chimed in on me and said they're supposed to go through site plan review. So we're working on that. All right. Closed session items. David, you have something for us?
Yes, briefly.
Okay, then could I have a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
Support.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, let's go into closed session. Phineas, we're on you.
All right, stand by.
Get everybody back?
Yeah.
Motion to come out of closed session?
They came out of it in closed session.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you. Sorry. All right, then. Alicia, what you got for us?
Item D is going to be to vote in accordance with the vote that was taken in closed session. Bevins.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carries. Anything else?
No.
Call for adjournment.
Motion.
Moved and supported. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you guys for joining us one more time. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.